There's a part of you that's been performing harmony, that's been trying to look the part, play it safe, and keep things beautiful, even when something deeper didn't feel right. Wherever Libra sits in your chart, there's often a story of approval over alignment, of choosing what's pleasing over what's real, of seeking validation instead of trusting your truth. In this video, we're diving into Libra by house to explore the area of your life where your soul has been outsourcing its worth, prioritizing image over integrity, and silencing discomfort to keep the peace. And more importantly, you'll learn how to come back to yourself, unfiltered, unapologetic, and free to want what you actually want. So grab your birth chart, find the house or houses where Libra sits, and let's dive in.
Having Libra in the first house is about healing the image addiction and self-abandonment mask. Libra on the first house means your entire sense of identity has been shaped in response to how others see you. This is the rising sign, your entry point into the world. And with Libra here, you learned early on that looking good, being likable, and staying agreeable got you the closest to love, safety, or validation. Your soul may have started performing before you ever knew who you were. Not because you're inauthentic, but because you learned that being wanted meant being pleasing. So you adjusted, you softened, you learned how to fit into the version of yourself that would be praised, accepted, or adored. But in that process, your real truth, the raw, messy, unfiltered you, may have gone underground. This placement often carries a deep internal split. The person I show to the world and the version of me that no one sees. Libra energy here masks discomfort with charm, mask need with politeness, and mask anger with composure. It's elegant, it's admired, but beneath the surface, you may constantly question, am I being true or just being tolerated? Do people love me or just the version of me I perform? This house holds your invitation to step out of the mirror, to stop living for the reflection, and start embodying your truth. The challenges of Libra rising run deep because they're not always obvious. On the outside, you may appear confident, magnetic, and socially effortless. But inside, you're carrying a subtle but constant pressure to be what people need you to be. This can create a pattern of always smiling through discomfort. Habitual people-pleasing, especially in new situations. Over-editing your words, outfit, tone, or opinions to fit the right vibe. Avoidance of confrontation, not because you don't have needs, but because you don't believe they'll be received. Feeling emotionally invisible in relationships, even when you're admired. Constant self-monitoring. How am I being perceived right now? This house is where you learn to seek harmony at all cost, but that harmony often comes at your cost. You may also struggle with imposter syndrome because your outer image doesn't match your inner experience. You may feel like people love the idea of you, but don't actually know you. You may avoid making bold moves or changes unless you feel completely put together. And this conditioning runs deep because it's worked. You have been praised. You do come across polished, easy to be around, impressive. But beneath the performance, there may be a quiet grief for the version of you who's never fully shown up without checking the mirror first. Having Libra in your first house can show up in your day-to-day life in a few different ways. So you may dress to impress, but secretly wish you could wear what feels real. You may rarely let people see you unfiltered, messy, or emotional. You may feel stuck in nice dynamics, relationships, jobs, or communities that look good but feel hollow. You may often hold back your true opinions to keep the peace. You may say yes before you've even checked in with your own body. You may worry that being bold, intense, or raw will make you too much. You may fear becoming unlikable if you let people see your darker moods or deeper truths. Even on social media or in public spaces, you may feel like you're constantly curating instead of living. There's often a disconnect between who people think you are and how you actually feel. And the longer you stay in that performance loop, the more your real needs, desires, and boundaries get buried under approval seeking. Your healing is about reclaiming identity through self-approval, not social validation. Libra in the first house is not meant to erase you. It's meant to teach you the art of harmony through embodiment, not harmony through silence, not beauty through suppression, not love through performance. This placement is an invitation to let yourself be seen in your wholeness, not just when you're composed, polished, and palatable. The first step to achieving this is to practice visibility without perfection. Post the photo where your hair is wild. Wear the outfit that doesn't match but makes you feel alive. Let yourself be seen in motion, not just when you're polished. Next is to speak your truth even when your voice shakes. Say the thing you've been holding back. Let discomfort be a doorway, not a stop sign. Being real matters more than being received perfectly. Next is to let go of the need to be neutral. Take up space with your preferences, your passions, your edges. You're not here to be a reflection. You're here to be a force. Next is to set boundaries without guilt. Harmony isn't real if it only exists when you're self-abandoning. If your peace requires your silence, it's not peace. It's suppression. Next is to unfollow the script of being easy to be around. You weren't born to be tolerated. You were born to be raw, radiant, complex, complete. And finally, stop waiting for the aesthetic to match before you act. Your life isn't a brand. Your soul doesn't need to look the part. It already is the part. This isn't about being unkind or careless. It's about being real. And when you're real, you're free. A great affirmation for your Libra-ruled first house is, I am not a mirror. I am not a brand. I am not here to be liked. I am here to be known. My truth doesn't need permission. My presence doesn't need polish. I am safe to be fully seen. What hit home for you? Drop it in the comments. I read every one. And of course, be sure to like, share this with your friends, and subscribe so you never miss your next breakthrough. And if you're ready to activate the life you're meant for, everything you need is in the description box below, which includes my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Having Libra in the second house is about reclaiming self-worth from performance and presentation. Libra ruling the second house reveals a core wound around value, beauty, and approval. It suggests that somewhere along the line, you were taught, implicitly or directly, that your worth was tied to how appealing you were to others. You may have learned to earn love by being attractive, agreeable, stylish, or put together. Your value wasn't presented as something inherent. It was something to prove through your looks, charm, grace, or desirability. So you begin to measure your self-worth through external mirrors. How people responded to you, how beautiful you looked, how calm and balanced you appeared, how much others praised your presence, body, voice, or energy. But underneath all that effort, a quiet fear lingers. If I'm not aesthetically pleasing, emotionally accommodating, or socially impressive, will anyone still value me? The second house governs resources, self-esteem, and the ability to feel secure in your own skin. With Libra here, you've likely struggled to separate your true worth from the image of worthiness you've learned to perform. This placement often creates a complicated relationship with receiving, self-trust, and value. You may be overly attuned to how others see you and deeply unsure of how to hold your worth from within. So you might struggle to ask for what you're worth, financially or emotionally. Base your confidence on compliments, attention, or how together you seem. You may avoid rest unless you feel you've earned it by being productive or helpful. You may judge your body harshly, especially in comparison to others. You may feel guilty when you center yourself or claim something just because it feels good. You may use aesthetics, beauty rituals, or outer polish to try and fix an inner void. Libra here can also create a people-pleasing wound around money and possessions. So undercharging to seem generous or low maintenance. Gifting excessively to maintain approval. Avoiding wealth because it feels selfish or unfair to have more than others. Feeling uncomfortable receiving unless you've overgiven first. And even when life looks balanced or successful, your sense of value can still feel fragile. Because deep down, the question isn't, do I have enough? It's, am I enough? Libra in the second house energy can show up in a few different ways. So you may hesitate to raise your rates, set financial boundaries, or claim luxuries. You may over-apologize when spending money on yourself. You may rely on others' praise or romantic attention to feel beautiful. You may struggle with guilt when resting, indulging, or celebrating yourself. You may hide your insecurities behind aesthetics, fashion, or emotional diplomacy. You may default to earning love through gifts, sweetness, or support, but secretly feel depleted or unseen. You may worry that being too much will make you less lovable, so you tone yourself down. This house reveals a deep link between self-worth and social acceptability. If your glow is only allowed when it's pleasing to others, it's not worth. That's performance. The core healing with this placement is remembering that your value is not a transaction. It's not based on what you give, how you look, or how much others want you. It's based on being, on existing, on your soul taking up space in a body that doesn't need to ask for permission. Libra in the second invites you to move from performance to presence, from pleasing to power, from aesthetic perfection to embodied worth. The first step to achieving this is to let yourself receive without performance. Accept the compliment. Take the help. Say yes to ease without trying to prove you deserve it. You don't have to earn softness. Next is to create beauty that feels good, not just looks good. Choose comfort over aesthetic when you need it. Build a life that nurtures your nervous system, not just your image. Next is to redefine what makes you valuable. You are not your productivity, your polish, or your paycheck. Start noticing the power of your presence, even when you're still messy or unseen. Next is to stop apologizing for needing security. Wanting financial safety, consistency, or emotional steadiness is not a weakness. It's wisdom. Let yourself stabilize without shame. Next is to rebuild your relationship with money through self-worth. Spend from self-trust, not from self-sacrifice. Price your work like it carries soul, because it does. And finally, say no to people, jobs, or situations that require you to shrink. If it costs you your self-respect, it's too expensive. This isn't about rejecting beauty. It's about owning it, reclaiming it, and no longer making your lovability dependent on how well you perform it. A great affirmation for your Libra-ruled second house is, I don't have to earn my worth. I don't have to prove my value. I am lovable even when I'm not performing. I am valuable even when I'm not perfect. I am allowed to receive with nothing to prove. Be sure to let me know what spoke to your soul down in the comments below. And don't keep this to yourself. Be sure to like, share it with someone who needs this shift, and subscribe so you never miss what's next. And if something in you just clicked, unlock the next layer with my offerings, which are all listed in the description box below. This includes my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Libra in the third house is about releasing the need to sound right to feel worthy. Libra ruling the third house shows that your voice, your communication style, thoughts, and social interactions were shaped around appeal, approval, and acceptability. From a young age, you likely learned that being liked had everything to do with how you said things and how easy you were to be around. You may have received praise for being polite, calm, thoughtful, or well-spoken, but the unspoken message was often this: don't say too much, don't rock the boat, keep it light, keep it nice. Over time, this can distort your inner dialogue. You begin to filter your ideas, opinions, and even thoughts through the lens of, will this make me sound smart? Will this offend someone? Will I still be liked if I speak my truth? And when that kind of over-filtering becomes internalized, it starts to reshape your self-worth. If my words aren't perfect, I won't be accepted. The third house is the realm of the mind, how we think, express, learn, and share. With Libra here, you may have been taught to use language as a form of performance instead of expression. This placement can create deep insecurities around intellect, articulation, and belonging in conversation. It often leads to overthinking how you sound, how you're coming across, or how nice your words are. People-pleasing through text, tone, or conversation. Holding back your opinions unless you're sure they'll be received well. Constantly smoothing over awkward moments or mediating conflict, even at your own expense. Over-editing what you say, afraid of sounding too much or not enough. Feeling exhausted after social interactions, not because you're shy, but because you've been performing harmony the whole time. There can also be a chronic self-doubt when it comes to sharing your voice. So second-guessing yourself in group settings, comparing your ideas to others, silencing yourself when you feel outshined or misunderstood, struggling to write, post, or speak freely unless it sounds just right. And because Libra rules beauty, this can even extend into aesthetics, feeling like your style of communication must be graceful, polished, or visually curated to be valid. Now, Libra in the third house can show up in a few different ways. So you may say what's safe instead of what's real. You soften your truth to protect others from discomfort. You hold back creative expression because it doesn't feel aesthetic or refined enough. You avoid conflict by ghosting, detaching, or over-accommodating. You often reread text or emails multiple times before sending them. You worry that you'll come across too intense, too bold, or not educated enough. You get stuck comparing your content, voice, or thoughts to others, even when you know you're gifted. There's often a fear that disagreeing or being misunderstood will lead to rejection. So you stay on the surface, even when your soul is screaming for deeper expression. Your healing lies in learning that your voice doesn't need to be beautiful to be worthy. It just needs to be true. Libra in the third house is here to help you return to authentic self-expression, not the version of your voice that pleases, performs, or passes as polished. It's time to let go of the need to be agreeable, the pressure to be eloquent, the desire to sound put together, and instead, let yourself be real, messy, honest, fully expressed. The first step to achieving this is to say the thing you're afraid won't sound nice. You don't have to word it perfectly. You don't need a polished delivery to speak your truth. Let your voice be real before it's refined. Next is to write or speak without over-editing. Post the caption before you second guess it. Send the message before it's perfect. Your voice carries power and its rawness. Next is to stop filtering your thoughts to be digestible. You're allowed to take up space in conversations, even if you're bold, emotional, or misunderstood. Next is to let your truth disrupt the group chat. You don't have to agree just to stay included. You don't have to stay silent to be liked. Your opinion matters, especially when it's different. Next is to start noticing where you intellectualize instead of feel. Let your communication be a doorway, not a defense. You're not here to be agreeable. You're here to be authentic. And finally, reclaim your curiosity. Ask the questions no one else is asking. Follow the thoughts that don't fit the mold. Let learning be led by soul, not social approval. This house is where your mind has been shaped to perform perfection, but it's also where your soul is begging for freedom. You don't have to sound right to be right for yourself. A great affirmation for your Libra-ruled third house is, my voice doesn't need permission. My truth doesn't need polish. I am safe to speak even when it's messy, quiet, or bold. I don't need to sound right to be worthy. I am allowed to take up space with my thoughts. Spill your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear everything. And of course, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss your next breakthrough. And if you're ready to go deeper, all of my journals, courses, and one-on-one sessions are waiting for you in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Libra in the fourth house is about when being the peacemaker costs you your peace. Libra ruling the fourth house shows that you grew up in an environment where appearance, harmony, or image were more important than emotional honesty. You may have come from a home that looked beautiful on the outside, but underneath there were unspoken tensions, emotional suppression, or pressure to keep it together. Even if your caregivers weren't cruel, they may have modeled that comfort was earned through compliance, or that conflict must be avoided at all cost. So you adapted. You became the mediator, the agreeable one, the child who brought balance to the room, whether it was your job or not. You sensed when to shrink, when to smile, when to smooth things over. You learned that your emotional safety depended on how well you could read the room and keep it calm. This placement carries the silent burden of the child who held space for everyone else, but rarely got to fall apart themselves. Libra here can also reflect a family or cultural system that valued appearances. Everything needed to look good, sound nice, and seem stable. But it often left your real emotional needs unseen. This energy can manifest as people-pleasing rooted in survival, not personality. Suppressing your own emotions to maintain external peace. Feeling uncomfortable with raw emotion, yours or others. A home life centered around status or surface-level connection. Being the emotional glue in the family while your own feelings went neglected. Equating love with balance rather than honesty. Even now, you may struggle with feeling safe enough to express sadness, anger, or intensity. Letting people see you cry, rage, or fall apart. Believing that expressing discomfort makes you a burden. Avoiding conflict at home, even when something really hurts. Feeling fake or performative in your personal life, but not knowing how to break the pattern. Libra in the fourth can also signal emotional bypassing as a coping mechanism, such as, it's fine, I'm okay, it's not a big deal, even when your heart is aching. This energy can show up in a few different ways. So you may constantly take on the role of emotional fixer in your family or close relationships, where you can't fully relax unless the energy in the room feels balanced. You may hold on to tears to avoid being seen as dramatic or too sensitive. You may downplay your needs and convince yourself it's not worth bringing up. You may over-curate your home, schedule, or lifestyle to make things look peaceful, even when you feel anxious inside. You may avoid vulnerability at home because you associate it with conflict or rejection. You may feel disconnected from your inner world unless you intentionally make space for it. Your emotional foundation may feel like a tightrope. Stay balanced, or things will break. So instead of building safety through expression, you've built it through presentation. This placement is asking you to create real peace, not polished peace. To let your home and your inner world be safe instead of staged. To stop holding back the chaos, grief, and honesty that you were never allowed to express fully. Because real harmony isn't about avoiding mess. It's about knowing you're still loved in the middle of it. The first step to this is to redesign your definition of home. Home doesn't have to look polished or feel peaceful 24/7. Let it be a space that holds truth, not just appearance. Next is to let yourself be messy in your inner world. You don't have to process everything quietly. You're allowed to cry loudly, rest unapologetically, and feel deeply without shame. Next is to stop pretending you're okay just to keep others comfortable. Your emotions are not a burden. You don't have to hold the peace at the cost of your own tenderness. Next is to challenge the belief that love must feel stable to be safe. Emotional honesty is safer than emotional performance. Let people in, even if your truth feels ungraceful. Next is to reclaim softness as your birthright. You don't need a curated calm to deserve rest or care. You are worthy of nurturing even when you feel raw. And finally, create private rituals that support the real you. Light a candle and scream into a pillow. Journal your anger without censoring it. Let home be where your soul can unfold, not just impress. Let your home, internal and external, be a place where you can fall apart and be held. A great affirmation for your Libra-ruled 4th house is, I don't have to keep the peace to be loved. I don't have to look composed to be safe. My truth is allowed in my home. I can be soft, messy, angry, or broken and still be worthy of love. I'd love to hear your OMG That's Me moment, so be sure to share it in the comments below. And don't keep this to yourself. be sure to share it with someone who needs this shift. And your higher self has homework. So be sure to grab my soul activating digital journals, courses, or my signature one-on-one sessions, which are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Libra in the 5th house is healing the performance wound around being loved. Libra ruling the 5th house reveals that your relationship with creativity, attention, romance, and self-expression has been shaped by the need to be liked. The 5th house governs happiness, play, flirtation, artistry, and being seen. With Libra here, love and visibility often felt conditional. You learned that when you were charming, aesthetically appealing, well-behaved, or entertaining, you received love. But when you were messy, moody, raw, or too much, love felt like it disappeared. So you became a performer. You figured out how to present yourself in ways that were magnetic, but non-threatening, beautiful, but digestible, playful, but still composed. There's a hidden grief here, the grief of a child who realized that being loved meant being liked, and being liked meant hiding the parts of you that weren't cute, fun, or easy to handle. This placement can result in an identity shaped around pleasing the gaze of others instead of expressing what's real. Libra in the 5th can distort your connection to self-expression. So you may struggle to create unless it looks aesthetic or is guaranteed to be well received. You may hold back creatively unless your work appears graceful, pretty, or safe. You may feel more comfortable playing a romantic role than showing up authentically in love. You may avoid doing things just for fun unless they make you look good or win praise. You may downplay your desires if they seem selfish or disruptive. You may tie your desirability to being easygoing, attractive, or lighthearted. This is the house of the inner child, and your inner child may have internalized, if I'm lovable, it's because I'm entertaining, because I look good, because I make people feel good. But what about you? Who pours into you when you're not shining or flirting or captivating? This house shows where your heart learned to filter joy through the lens of acceptability. It also reveals where you might hide your true passions, romantic expectations, or bolder creative urges because they might not be approved of. The energy of this placement can show up in a few different ways. So you may struggle to express anger, jealousy, or grief in romantic relationships because you fear being unattractive. You may feel pressure to always appear light, cute, or unbothered, even when you're heartbroken or overwhelmed. You may post creative content that's visually beautiful, but emotionally withheld. You may flirt to feel validated, but resist deeper emotional intimacy. You may avoid hobbies unless you're good at them or they bring admiration. You may fall into romantic or artistic roles that look great from the outside, but don't feel fulfilling. You could struggle with imposter syndrome when you express something vulnerable, intense, or radically different. The fifth house is about being witnessed. But Libra here can make you feel like you're constantly auditioning instead of living. This house invites you to liberate your inner artist, inner child, and inner lover from the performance loop. Your joy isn't here to be marketable. It's here to be sacred. Your love life isn't a movie. It's a mirror. Your creativity isn't a brand. It's a birthright. To begin healing this placement, the first step is to create for your joy, not just for applause. Make something messy, loud, unfiltered. Let your art or self-expression reflect your aliveness, not just your likability. Next is to flirt with life without needing a response. You don't have to be desired to feel radiant. Be playful for the sake of being playful. Be magnetic for yourself. Next is to let go of trying to be the perfect partner. You're not here to be romantic wallpaper. You're here to be adored as you are, not for how well you perform romance. Next is to take creative risk without waiting for validation. Post the weird video. Share the poem no one asked for. Wear the outfit that makes you feel like a walking firework. Next is to stop sacrificing your passion just to be palatable. You don't need to tone it down. You don't need to shrink your brilliance to make others comfortable. And finally, redefine what it means to be special. It's not about being chosen. It's about choosing yourself loudly and often. Your soul is begging to be seen in its fullness, not just in its appeal. A great affirmation for your Libra-ruled fifth house is, I'm allowed to create without impressing. I'm allowed to love without performing. I am not a role. I am not a product. I am not a show. My joy is sacred. My art is worthy. My presence is enough. Let me know what spoke to your soul down below in the comments. And of course, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss your next breakthrough. And if you're ready to go deeper, all of my journals, courses, and one-on-one sessions are waiting for you in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Libra in the sixth house is where being nice becomes a full-time job. Libra ruling the sixth house reveals that your relationship with work, service, wellness, and daily life has been shaped by the pressure to be pleasant, agreeable, and polished, even at the cost of your well-being. You may have learned early on that value came from being helpful, harmonious, and emotionally low maintenance. That your role, whether in the family, in school, or later in the workplace, was to keep things running smoothly without making a fuss or drawing too much attention to your needs. This placement often points to a childhood where routine equals regulation, and being easy to manage earned approval. You might have been the responsible one, the good girl, the polite fixer who never dropped the ball, even if you were silently drowning inside. Over time, this wires your self-worth to how useful, reliable, or emotionally neutral you can be. Libra energy here can also manifest as perfectionism disguised as balance, constantly adjusting your schedule, your tone, your energy, your meals, or your inbox to look calm and collected while hiding the inner chaos. This is the house of service. But with Libra here, service can quietly morph into self-abandonment. Libra in the sixth can trap you in roles and routines that make you seem reliable and easygoing, but that actually exhaust your spirit. So you may overextend yourself at work to keep others happy. Avoid setting boundaries with clients, bosses, or coworkers to maintain your image. Feel intense guilt around saying no or disappointing others. Obsess over how your habits or appearance reflect on you. Struggle with burnout from constantly keeping the peace in your day-to-day. Micromanaging your health, weight, productivity, or lifestyle for external approval. There's also a deeper fear at play. If I'm not perfect, helpful, or graceful, I won't be seen as valuable. This creates chronic self-editing. Even your healing journey might start to feel like another thing to perfect, perform, and be praised for. Libra here can also attract work or wellness environments that look aligned on the surface, but drain you behind the scenes. You may be stuck in routines that serve others, but don't serve you. Libra in the sixth house can show up in your day-to-day life in a few different ways. So you may never want to seem difficult, so you pick up the slack, even when you're exhausted. You may do emotional labor at work or in relationships without ever getting credit. You may obsess over wellness rituals that feel like punishment instead of nourishment. You may feel uncomfortable resting unless your to-do list is done and your space is spotless. You may prioritize other people's needs in your schedule, but forget to include yourself. You may get resentful, but don't express it because being low maintenance has become your identity. You may keep everything looking put together, even when your soul is unraveling quietly. This house is about your energetic output, and Libra here makes it easy to pour and pour and pour as long as it looks good. But who's replenishing you? The sixth house is where you create systems of support. Libra here asks you to build systems that support you, not just everyone else. This isn't about being less kind. It's about being kind to yourself first. Your worth is not measured in how easy you are to work with, how on you are every day, or how perfectly you manage your schedule. It's measured in how you care for your own energy and allow yourself to be human. The first step to healing this placement is first to make your daily routines honor your energy, not your image. Your life doesn't have to look balanced to be aligned. Rest when it's inconvenient. Nourish yourself even when no one's watching. Next is to stop shrinking your needs to seem easy to work with. You don't have to be the agreeable coworker, the graceful healer, or the perfect team player. You're allowed to have boundaries and boldness. Next, to reclaim the rituals that actually restore you. Sip tea slowly instead of rushing your morning. Say no to the meeting that drains you. Let your self-care be yours, not curated. Next is to unhook your worth from productivity. You're not more lovable when you check every box. Take breaks that have no point. Let imperfection live in your calendar. Next is to challenge the guilt around doing less. You don't need to overperform or overgive to feel valuable. You don't owe the world your exhaustion to earn belonging. And finally, reframe what balance means. It's not about getting everything right. It's about feeling right in your body, your work, and your rhythm. Real balance isn't about doing more. It's about finally allowing less. A great affirmation for your Libra-ruled sixth house is, I don't exist to hold everything together. My worth is not in my performance. I am allowed to rest. I am allowed to receive. I am not here to please. I am here to live. Did this wake something up in you? Tell me in the comments. I'm listening. And if you're here for the glow up, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and share this with your friends. And if you're ready to go even deeper, be sure to grab my soul activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions, which are all linked in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Libra in the seventh house is when your relationships become a mirror for your worth. Libra ruling the seventh house means that your soul's deepest lessons and most sensitive wounds are reflected back to you through relationships. You've likely carried a subconscious belief that love is something you earn through likability, compromise, and emotional flexibility. That being chosen, partnered, or adored means being palatable, pretty, and easy to love. And over time, you may have made peace a performance. You learned to read the energy in every dynamic and do whatever it took to keep harmony intact. You shape-shifted to avoid rejection. You smiled through disconnection. You confused getting along with being met. Because deep down, there's a fear. If I take up too much space in love, I'll be left. This placement can lead to seeking reflection through other people, mirroring their opinions, lifestyle, or preferences in an attempt to feel more whole. It's not about manipulation. It's about survival. You've been taught that worth equals how others receive you. But Libra in the 7th also means this. Your greatest healing will come from reclaiming your wholeness without needing a mirror. This placement can pull you into relational dynamics that reward your agreeableness, but ignore your truth. Rely on you to hold emotional and energetic equilibrium. Validate you only when you're pleasing, polished, or emotionally available. Dynamics that collapse when you stop performing perfect partner energy. That feel peaceful on the surface, but emotionally imbalanced underneath. You may avoid conflict at all cost, even when your needs aren't being met. Stay in relationships that look good but feel unfulfilling. Feel lost or unsure of who you are when you're not in partnership. Chase connection as a way to feel valuable or seen. Shape your identity based on who you're dating, helping, or harmonizing with. Confuse self-sacrifice with love. There's often a heartbreak here that goes unspoken. You've given so much of yourself to love, only to realize it wasn't you they loved. It was your performance. This energy can show up in your life in a few different ways. So you may wait to make big life decisions until someone else validates them. You may feel anxious or unworthy when you're not in a relationship. You may attract partners who drain you, but are hard to leave because the relationship seems fine. You may water yourself down to avoid conflict or from being too much. You may lose touch with your needs when someone else's desires enter the room. You may question your worth when a relationship ends, even if it wasn't right for you. You may stay longer than you should because at least it's stable. This house is where Libra energy plays out loudest, and it can keep you in patterns of self-abandonment disguised as connection. Healing this placement is about unlearning the lie that love must be maintained at the expense of self. You are allowed to be chosen and still choose yourself. You are allowed to be held and still have boundaries. You are allowed to be loved and still say no. Libra in the 7th wants you to remember that the right relationships won't punish your truth. They'll reflect it. But first, you must give yourself permission to be fully expressed without waiting for approval. The first step to achieving this is to choose connection that doesn't cost you your center. You don't have to dissolve into someone to be close to them. Real intimacy requires wholeness, not constant compromise. Next is to stop shaping yourself into what others want. Let yourself be fully expressed in relationships, even when it risks disappointment. You are not here to be agreeable. You're here to be authentic. Next is to release the belief that being chosen equals being worthy. The right partnership won't require performance. Let go of connections that only value your image and not your essence. Next is to redefine what love feels like. You don't have to maintain peace at the cost of your voice. If being loved means being silenced, that's not love. It's role playing. Next is to practice saying no to partnerships that require your prettiness, but not your truth. Walk away from anything that mirrors back only the parts of you that are convenient. And finally, stand fully in your values, even in love. Don't bend to avoid tension. Let alignment, not approval, be your relationship compass. Let love become a mirror that reflects your wholeness, not a mask that hides it. A great affirmation for your Libra-ruled 7th house is, I don't need to earn love through agreement. My truth doesn't make me unlovable. I am already whole, with or without a reflection. I don't need a mirror to prove I'm worthy. Be sure to let me know what hit home for you and drop it in the comments below. And don't keep this to yourself. Be sure to like it, share it with someone who needs this shift, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if something in you just clicked, unlock the next layer by checking out my offerings, which are all in the description box below. This includes my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Libra in the 8th house is when politeness becomes a mask for emotional survival. Libra ruling the 8th reveals a soul that's been conditioned to appear composed in the face of emotional chaos. The 8th house governs intimacy, power, transformation, sex, grief, and the deepest parts of the psyche. But Libra's instinct here is to smooth over the intensity, to make the mess palatable, the desire acceptable, and the trauma digestible. There's a subtle survival strategy here. If I keep it pretty, I won't lose control. You may have grown up in an environment where deep emotions weren't welcome, where grief, anger, jealousy, or vulnerability had to be softened, hidden, or intellectualized. This trains the nervous system to stay balanced at all cost, even when your world is breaking open inside. With this placement, you might be haunted by how well you've hidden your pain. Libra in the 8th says, I'll dress my wounds and grace. But the soul eventually demands to bleed, feel, and rage its way to healing. This placement often leads to performing emotional composure while privately drowning in grief, fear, or longing. Using relationships to stabilize your emotional world, then feeling resentful when they can't. Avoiding emotional confrontation, even when it's necessary for intimacy. Fearing vulnerability because it feels like loss of control. Associating sexuality or emotional expression with needing to look put together. Being drawn to intense or secretive partnerships, but hiding your own emotional intensity. The fear here is that your rawness will make you unlovable. So instead of facing the messy truth, you may curate your grief into a quiet story. You intellectualize your fear. You seduce instead of surrender. You cope by creating an illusion of control. But the 8th house demands surrender, not a well-lit performance. The energy of this placement can show up in a few different ways. So you may keep your emotional pain hidden, only sharing it when it's processed and pretty. You may avoid letting anyone see you ugly cry, rage, or fall apart. You may intellectualize trauma rather than feel it in your body. You may fear being a burden, so you minimize your pain in relationships. You dress up your breakdowns, looking good while suffering in silence. You may seek control in love or sex to avoid ever feeling powerless again. And you may experience emotional burnout because you've been holding in too much for too long. This house rules what we suppress. And Libra here often means you've suppressed rage, desire, grief, and longing in the name of staying pleasant. But that's not peace. That's performance. The healing begins when you stop needing your transformation to look graceful. Your power doesn't live in being composed. It lives in your willingness to be real. The 8th house is the underworld, and healing here requires radical emotional honesty. Let go of curating your grief. Let it move through you. Let yourself feel what you've been holding in for years without translating it into something poetic first. The first step to healing this placement is to stop trying to make transformation look good. Real healing is messy, emotional, and uncomfortable. You don't have to smile through the storm. You just have to stay with yourself while in it. Next is to let people see you when you're undone. You don't owe anyone poise in the middle of your pain. Practice intimacy that makes room for your shadows, not just your polish. Next is to redefine what power means. It's not about appearing composed. It's about being real even when that truth is inconvenient, ugly, or hard to hold. Next is to say no to emotional performance in relationships. You don't have to be seductive, mysterious, or emotionally pleasing to be worthy of depth. Let your honesty lead. Next is to allow yourself to express anger, grief, jealousy, and longing without shame. You are not unlovable because your feelings are intense. You are human because they are. And finally, take your power back from people who only accept the curated version of you. The most sacred connections won't ask you to shrink your darkness to be embraced. Let your beauty come from your bravery, not your balance. A great affirmation for your Libra-ruled 8th house is, I am not here to bleed quietly. I don't need to look okay to be okay. My truth is sacred, even when it's messy. I am allowed to feel deeply. I am allowed to be seen. What hit home for you? Be sure to drop it in the comments. I read every one. And if you're growing with me, make sure you're subscribed and locked in, and be sure to share this with someone who needs it. And if you're ready to activate the life you're meant for, everything you need is in the description box below, which includes my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Libra in the 9th house is when the search for truth gets filtered through a desire to belong. Libra ruling the 9th house reveals a soul that craves expansion, freedom, and deeper meaning, but has been conditioned to seek approval on the path to truth. The 9th house is about beliefs, philosophy, spiritual identity, education, travel, and world view. It's the house of becoming more. But Libra here can mean you were taught to pursue that more in a way that's visually pleasing, socially acceptable, or intellectually popular. You may have been praised for being open-minded, well-spoken, or balanced in your thinking, but discouraged from rocking the boat or believing in something too radical. There's often a subconscious belief with this placement. I can question everything as long as it doesn't make anyone uncomfortable. So instead of finding truth that's raw and soul activating, you might have gravitated toward beliefs that look good on the outside, but don't feel fully aligned on the inside. This placement can result in spiritual people-pleasing, shaping your opinions, lifestyle, or even your spiritual aesthetic based on how well it fits into someone else's framework. You're wired to explore, but somewhere along the way, you were taught that exploration needed to come with a filter. Libra in the 9th can show up as being more concerned with how your beliefs are perceived than how they actually feel. Struggling to own an unpopular opinion, spiritual truth, or unconventional path. Hesitating to claim a belief system unless it's socially digestible or pretty enough. hiding your curiosity or gifts in environments where they aren't accepted, filtering your voice to keep conversations pleasant, even if they lack depth, seeking mentors, teachers, or ideologies that feel impressive rather than soul-nourishing. There's a quiet grief with this placement. The version of you who wanted to ask bigger questions, live louder truths, or claim a deeper purpose, but didn't feel safe to go all in. With Libra here, you may have performed the appearance of enlightenment while secretly wondering if you were allowed to believe anything too different. The energy of this placement can show up in your life in a few different ways. So, you love learning, but avoid conversations that could lead to debate or disapproval. You use intellectual neutrality as a shield against emotional or spiritual depth. You filter your beliefs through what sounds the most balanced, educated, or mainstream. You struggle to fully own your spiritual path if it doesn't look aligned to others. You talk about your truth in a curated way, like you're afraid to be seen as extreme. You downplay your soul's actual calling because it's not easily understood or accepted. You over-explain your choices so you won't be judged for being too much or too different. This house wants you to follow the truth that feels like fire. But Libra here makes it easy to follow what simply feels acceptable. The 9th house is your spiritual megaphone. Libra here challenges you to stop translating your truth through what's tasteful and start living it through what's true. This is about reclaiming your voice in the space of belief, reclaiming your right to grow beyond what's comfortable, elegant, or easily approved. Let yourself become the version of you that's too much for the old version of you. The first step to achieving this is to let go of needing your beliefs to sound balanced or agreeable. You're allowed to have convictions that disrupt the room. Say what you really believe, even if it's unpopular. Next is to stop playing small in spiritual or intellectual spaces. You don't need credentials, aesthetics, or approval to be wise. Your lived experience is already sacred knowledge. Next is to question the paths you followed just because they looked right. Unlearn the pretty philosophies that don't feel true anymore. Alignment is louder than appearance. Next is to reclaim your right to wander, question, and outgrow old systems. You don't have to stay loyal to the teachings that kept you digestible. Let your curiosity break the mold. Next is to practice taking up space in conversations about truth, culture, and meaning. You don't have to soften your message for it to be worthy of being heard. And finally, make peace with being too much for people who aren't meant to walk your path. Your freedom isn't meant to be polite. It's meant to be real. You weren't meant to be agreeable. You are meant to awaken. And awakening is rarely symmetrical. A great affirmation for your Libra-ruled 9th house is, I'm allowed to believe boldly. I'm allowed to speak what's real, even if it's not refined. My truth doesn't need to be beautiful to be powerful. I am safe to walk the path that belongs to me. Let me know what spoke to your soul down below in the comments. And don't keep this to yourself. Be sure to like it, share it with someone who needs this shift, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And your higher self has homework. So be sure to check out my soul activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions, which are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Libra in the 10th house is when your image becomes a cage. Libra ruling the 10th house reveals a life path shaped by the need to be admired, respected, and seen as successful in the eyes of others. This placement often comes with early pressure to be socially graceful, professionally polished, or aesthetically pleasing, not just for yourself, but to represent something or someone well. You may have been praised for being well-mannered, attractive, or high-achieving, and internalize the belief that what you do and how you look doing it is your value. So you begin curating a public identity, not out of vanity, but out of survival. Because somewhere along the way, you learned my visibility is only safe if I look the part. Libra in the 10th becomes the peacemaker on a pedestal, the one who's known for being diplomatic, well-spoken, balanced, or beautiful. But beneath the surface, there's often exhaustion because you've been performing palatability for so long, you're not sure who you are without it. This placement asks, what if your path to success doesn't look symmetrical? What if the real version of you is bolder, messier, louder, and still worthy of being seen? Libra in the 10th can trap you in an identity built on external admiration and aesthetic balance rather than inner alignment. So you might stay in careers or public roles that feel safe because they look respectable. Prioritize being liked, approved of, or celebrated, even when it feels hollow. Avoid making bold moves out of fear they'll disrupt your polished image. Censor your ambition, opinions, or self-expression to keep things graceful. Choose career paths that look good on paper but drain your soul in practice. Constantly compare your success timeline or presentation to others in your field. There's often deep fear around public perception. If I mess up, if I'm too raw, too bold, too real, I'll lose everything I worked for. You may hold yourself to impossible standards, striving to appear balanced at all times, even when your inner world is craving disruption and growth. Libra here doesn't want to fail, but more than that, it doesn't want to look like a failure. This energy can show up in your day-to-day life in a few different ways. So you may downplay your dreams if they don't match society's idea of success. You may stay silent in professional settings to maintain harmony, even when you disagree. You may hesitate to change careers or rebrand because you don't want to lose credibility. You may overinvest in your visual identity, looks, brand, reputation, and underinvest in what truly lights you up. You may choose roles that look empowering but don't feel that way behind closed doors. You may receive praise but still feel unseen because the real you is hidden behind the image. This placement can create a brand out of your personality, but the soul gets tired of being a logo. Eventually, the mask of success becomes too tight, and your true calling demands to breathe. The 10th house is where you're meant to rise, lead, and be seen. Libra here says, do it with grace, but your evolution asks you to do it with truth. You are allowed to be visible and imperfect. You are allowed to be a leader without being a performer. Your real success won't come from being well liked. It will come from being fully expressed. Even when that version of you is disruptive, emotional, bold, or hard to categorize. The first step to achieving this is to stop performing professionalism at the expense of your personhood. You don't have to be palatable to be powerful. Next is to redefine success in your own words. Let go of titles, status, or aesthetics that no longer match your values. Alignment is more sustainable than achievement. Next is to let your leadership be messy, real, and evolving. You don't have to look like the expert to embody wisdom. You're allowed to grow in public without shame. Next is to challenge the belief that your worth is tied to your reputation. Your identity isn't a brand. Your purpose is bigger than being well liked. Next is to say no to career paths that reward your performance but ignore your passion. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that's digestible but disconnected. And finally, take the risk of being seen in your truth, not just your image. The world doesn't need another perfectly curated persona. It needs you. You're not here to be the safe version of yourself. You're here to liberate others by embodying what's real. A great affirmation for your Libra-ruled 10th house is, I'm not here to be admired. I'm here to be authentic. I release the pressure to look perfect to lead. My voice, my truth, and my evolution are my legacy. I don't need to look successful to be successful. I love to hear your OMG, that's me moment, so be sure to let me know in the comments. And if you're here for the glow up, be sure to hit like, share this with someone who needs it, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if something in you just clicked, unlock the next layer by exploring my offerings, which are all linked in the description box below. This includes my soul activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Libra in the 11th is when belonging becomes a costume. Libra ruling the 11th house reveals a soul that deeply longs to belong, but has often felt that acceptance came with conditions. This house is about community, friendships, social groups, collective visions, and the broader systems we plug ourselves into. With Libra here, you may have grown up learning that being likable, agreeable, or well composed was the ticket to connection. So you became the version of yourself that fit in, that blended, that didn't ruffle feathers. You showed up with harmony, even when you felt unseen. You wore the aesthetic of acceptance. But underneath, you wondered, if I stopped being easy to like, will I still be included? This placement often stems from early experiences where relationships, cliques, or group settings rewarded those who played by the rules of social grace, but punished those who stood out too much. So you learned how to belong by becoming whatever the environment needed. But the deeper wound here is this. You've been performing connection, not living it. Libra in the 11th asks you to stop shape-shifting for approval and start connecting through truth. Because real community doesn't require your mask. It welcomes your whole self. This placement can show up as choosing friend groups or networks based on status, aesthetics, or comfort over true resonance. Feeling pressure to keep the peace within a group, even when it means silencing your own needs. Being the nice one or the mediator in social circles, but secretly feeling invisible or taken for granted. Struggling with jealousy, comparison, or imposter syndrome in community settings. Avoiding visibility or leadership in group settings unless you know you'll be liked. Overgiving in friendships to earn your place or avoid being left out. There's often a fear that authenticity equals rejection. So you stay curated, pleasant, socially smooth, but at what cost? Libra in the 11th can make you a master of blending in, while silently aching to be recognized for who you really are. This energy can show up in your day-to-day life in a few different ways. So you may dim your opinions or passions to avoid disrupting group dynamics. You may have many friends, but still feel emotionally disconnected or unseen. You may stay in social circles that no longer reflect your values out of obligation or fear of being alone. You may base your self-worth on how included or invited you are. You may second guess what you share online, creatively, or in public spaces to avoid backlash. You may become the emotional caretaker in your community, but secretly feel drained and unsupported. You may struggle to take up space in collaborative spaces unless you're sure it won't ruffle feathers. Libra here can make you a people pleaser in the collective, someone who's always adapting to maintain balance, even when your soul is calling for revolution. But the 11th house is where you're meant to challenge the system, to disrupt, to innovate, to belong as you are, not as you've curated yourself to be. This placement is about rewriting the terms of your belonging. No more shrinking to keep the peace. No more censoring your truth to maintain harmony. You're not here to be a decorative piece in someone else's community. You're here to be a force within it. Your voice matters. Your authenticity matters. And the more you show up without editing yourself to be liked, the more you attract real, soul-aligned relationships. The first step to achieving this is to stop performing to belong. You don't have to water yourself down to be included. The right people won't require you to sacrifice your weird, your fire, or your truth. Next is to let go of friendships that only accept the curated version of you. If you can't be real, raw, or messy in the room, it's not the right room. Next is to unfollow group dynamics that feel like silent contracts. You're allowed to evolve beyond the roles you played to keep the peace. You don't owe anyone your silence or sameness. Next is to redefine what community means to you. It doesn't have to be large, impressive, or aesthetically pleasing. Soul-aligned connection feels like relief, not pressure. Next is to challenge the belief that you need to be liked to make a difference. Your impact comes from integrity, not from approval. Let your authenticity ripple outward. And finally, take up space in group conversations with your full self. You're not here to keep the vibe cute. You're here to shift it. You aren't meant to fit in. You are meant to belong by being real. A great affirmation for your Libra-ruled 11th house is, I don't have to be agreeable to be loved. I belong when I'm being myself. My truth adds value to the collective. I release the pressure to blend in. I choose to stand out in integrity. Be sure to let me know what hit home for you and drop it in the comments. I read every one. And don't keep this to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to shift. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And your higher self has homework. So be sure to check out my soul-activating digital journals, courses, and my signature one-on-one sessions, which are all linked in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Libra in the 12th house is where peace becomes a disguise for suppression. Libra in the 12th reveals a soul that learned early to avoid conflict by disappearing. You may have developed a habit of internalizing disharmony and performing peace, even when chaos or heartbreak lived inside of you. The 12th house governs what's hidden, repressed, subconscious, and karmic. It's the space of spiritual residue, past life themes, and suppressed parts of the self. And with Libra here, your wound isn't just around disharmony. It's around the belief that you must sacrifice your truth to keep things nice. You may have been taught directly or subtly that emotions should stay beautiful, that outbursts were shameful, that disappointment should be swallowed. So you spiritualized your sadness. You made your pain look elegant. You learned to leave your body emotionally just to avoid disturbing the peace. But beneath that soft surface is a storm you were never given permission to express. With this placement, you may feel most comfortable hiding in aesthetics, fantasy, or performance, creating a curated image that allows you to avoid deeper discomfort. But it also keeps you from being deeply met. You may think, if I make things look okay, maybe they'll be okay. But Libra in the 12th doesn't want performance anymore. It wants healing. And healing doesn't always look pretty. Libra in the 12th can lead to suppressing anger, resentment, or pain to avoid confrontation. Believing that being spiritual means always being calm, composed, or graceful. Feeling guilt when you want to express raw emotion or set boundaries. Attracting relationships where you play the silent peacemaker. Fearing that if you're not pleasant or put together, you'll be rejected or abandoned. Subconsciously staying in disempowered states because they feel familiar and safe. You may idealize peace to the point that you avoid the very discomfort that would set you free. And because this is the house of the unconscious, much of this happens silently, like background programming you didn't know was running. The energy of this placement can show up in your day-to-day life in a few different ways. So you may sugarcoat your sadness and dress your trauma in elegance. You may be seen as graceful, kind, or chill, even when you're collapsing internally. You may feel emotionally invisible, yet aren't sure how to fully express your truth. You may attract relationships that mirror your habit of disappearing. You might overuse escapism, like fantasy, romantic idealism, or spiritual bypassing to avoid pain. You may not know how to let people in unless you're emotionally composed. You may feel more safe in dreams than in raw, messy reality. Libra here can keep you in a loop of quiet suffering, beautiful on the outside, disconnected on the inside. But the 12th house is your portal to the divine, and spirit can only meet you where you're willing to be seen fully. Healing this placement begins when you let go of being lovely and start being honest. This house wants you to reclaim all the pieces of you you've hidden in the name of harmony. It's time to be raw, to unravel, to show up in the full, emotional, deeply feeling being you are, without the pressure to polish your pain. The first step to achieving this is to stop trying to be spiritually graceful. You don't have to be calm, pretty, or composed to be wise. Your divinity lives in your wholeness, not your presentation. Next is to let yourself unravel in private without shame. You don't owe anyone a curated spiritual journey. Cry, be angry, rest, and dream without needing it to make sense. Next is to unmask the unconscious ways you perform peace. You might be holding emotional tension behind a smile. Give yourself permission to feel it instead of faking balance. Next is to reclaim your solitude as sacred, not something to be hidden. Disconnect without apologizing. Let your aloneness be a sanctuary, not a punishment. Next is to release the belief that your pain must be hidden to remain lovable. You are worthy in your shadows, your confusion, your not knowing. You don't have to earn healing. And finally, create art, rituals, or dreams that serve no one but your soul. Let your inner world breathe without needing it to be understood. Your soul is tired of holding its breath. Let yourself exhale. A great affirmation for your Libra-ruled 12th house is, I release the pressure to be polished in my pain. I am allowed to feel fully, speak honestly, and heal completely. My softness is not weakness. It is sacred. I do not need to be perfect to be held. Did this wake something up in you? Be sure to tell me in the comments. I'm listening. And don't keep this to yourself. Be sure to share it with someone who needs it. Like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you're ready to go even deeper, all of my journals, courses, and sessions are waiting for you in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching.